Story 1. Once upon a time, on a dark and eerie night, I found myself driving home after a long graveyard shift. Exhausted and desperate for relief, I suddenly felt an intense urge to relieve myself. It was an urgent, almost painful sensation. With no other cars in sight on the quiet parkway, I made a quick decision to pull over and find solace in the nearby woods. I activated my hazard lights as a precautionary measure, just in case a police officer happened to pass by. After finishing my business, I returned to my truck, ready to head home and finally get some rest. However, to my horror, all I heard was the sickening sound of the car battery failing to start the engine. I attempted to start it several times, but each attempt only resulted in disappointment. Frustrated and not wanting to further drain the battery, I gave up. Leaving my hazards on, I stepped out of the vehicle, preparing to flag down a passerby who might have jumper cables. It wasn't long before I spotted headlights approaching in the distance. Eagerly, I moved to the side of the road and began waving my arms in a desperate plea for assistance. The car slowed down and pulled over behind my truck. Two relatively large individuals emerged from the front seats, causing me to pause in my tracks. Thanking them for stopping, I immediately asked if they had jumper cables. As they exchanged glances with each other, a sense of unease crept over me. There was something off-putting about these individuals. Despite their seemingly innocent appearance, I couldn't shake the feeling that they exuded a certain gangster vibe. The driver, after a moment's pause, responded, "Nah." The other guy chimed in, asking if I was stuck. I confirmed, mentioning that my battery had died. The driver instructed me to give him a moment, as he intended to call one of his acquaintances. Uncertain about how I felt regarding their proposition, I realized I needed to take matters into my own hands. I dialed my brother's phone multiple times, even though it was well past midnight and I knew I had likely awakened him. However, I urgently explained that I was stuck in an emergency and needed his immediate help. Jumper cables were a must, and he needed to hurry. With some relief, my brother assured me he would be on his way shortly. While waiting, a sudden instinct told me to make a call for help on my own. I wasn't entirely comfortable relying solely on the two strangers. Dialing my brother again, I discreetly informed him of my concerns and urged him to bring some form of self-defense. I was convinced that I was about to be ambushed. He confirmed that he had his trusty baseball bat in the back seat, as he always did. Luckily, my truck was only a short distance from our house, roughly a 5-minute drive if he pressed on the accelerator. Filled with regret, I began berating myself for not enduring another 5 minutes of discomfort. If only I had waited, perhaps this harrowing encounter could have been avoided. Finally, more headlights emerged, approaching us on the parkway. The approaching vehicle gradually slowed down and pulled up behind the car that had stopped behind me. I leapt out of my car, vigorously waving my arms once again. However, when I noticed two of the car doors opening, a sense of unease washed over me. It became clear that this wasn't my brother. The driver of the first car stepped out and warmly greeted his apparent companions, who seemed ready for action. They all slowly made their way toward my truck, engaged in loud and heated arguments. It's worth mentioning that none of them held jumper cables, though I've never been particularly lucky in that moment. As the familiar headlights of my brother's Mustang came zooming down the parkway, I couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. He parked his car in front of mine and emerged, brandishing his trusty baseball bat. From the back seat, he pulled out another bat, which he tossed to me. My brother, being the larger and more dominant of us, raised his voice firmly and loudly, asserting that we didn't want any trouble and that it was in their best interest to move along and let us be. The three men, seemingly taken aback by our display of determination, took a step back upon seeing our bats. One of them decided it was best to retreat, leaving the others behind. The remaining men, in a feeble attempt to salvage their pride, muttered, "We ain't ever said we want no trouble." Upon closer examination of their first car, I realized that the individual who was originally seated in the passenger seat was conspicuously absent. Whispers exchanged between my brother and me confirmed our suspicions. Something wasn't right. My brother returned to his car and lifted the hood, using it as a makeshift barrier between our vehicles. He retrieved his jumper cables and connected them to my battery. As my brother worked on reviving my truck, I kept a watchful eye on the three men, who now loitered near their cars. We anxiously waited, and my brother, in a hushed tone, called out my name. With a subtle tilt of his head, he directed my attention to the dense woods nearby. Peering into the darkness, I caught sight of the man who had disappeared from the passenger seat. He was lurking among the trees, poised to launch a surprise attack. Instinctively, my brother and I formulated a plan. He signaled for me to try starting the ignition. With a deep breath, I turned the key and miraculously, the engine roared to life. I swiftly exited the truck, standing guard while my brother disconnected the jumper cables and returned them to his car. We exchanged whispers, outlining our escape strategy. As soon as we were both in our vehicles, we would accelerate and flee. We cast one last wary glance at the three men, huddled by the third car, observing our every move. Then, in a synchronized motion, we sprinted towards our respective vehicles and slammed the doors shut. My brother swiftly reversed his Mustang, giving us ample distance before I hit the gas pedal, propelling my truck back onto the road. In the chaos, I heard the sound of a brick shattering my rear windshield, followed by the unmistakable reverberation of gunshots. Bullets continued to pierce the remaining glass, but luckily none found their mark. Ducking as low as possible while still maintaining a clear view of the road, I maneuvered my truck, desperately trying to put as much distance as possible between us and the assailants. Miraculously, they didn't pursue us. We drove straight home, a mixture of relief and fear coursing through our veins. We recounted the chilling encounter to our 65-year-old father, who assured us that we had just narrowly escaped a confrontation with a local gang. In fact, he warned us never to travel that specific parkway at night, as it was notorious for being unsafe. Reflecting on the incident, I can only surmise that their initial intention was to rob me blind. However, they evidently didn't take kindly to our defensive stance, brandishing baseball bats in their faces. It was a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk just beyond the seemingly serene night. From that day forward, the incident served as a constant reminder to remain vigilant and trust our instincts. Sometimes, in the depths of darkness, our intuition is our greatest ally. We vowed to be more cautious, to avoid taking unnecessary risks on desolate roads late at night. In the aftermath of the harrowing encounter, we contacted the local authorities, providing them with a detailed account of the incident. While there was little they could do without substantial evidence, we hoped that our report would contribute to their efforts in tackling the growing gang activity in the area. As time went on, the fear and adrenaline gradually subsided, but the memory of that night remained etched in our minds. It served as a constant reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of personal safety. We shared our story with friends and family, warning them about the perils that may lurk in seemingly quiet moments. Our harrowing experience became a cautionary tale, urging others to remain vigilant and trust their instincts in similar situations. Moreover, we took it upon ourselves to educate our community about personal safety, organizing workshops and seminars on self-defense techniques and situational awareness. By empowering others with knowledge and skills, we hope to prevent such terrifying encounters from happening to anyone else. The incident also prompted a change within us. We became more proactive in our personal security, investing in home security systems, self-defense classes, and even participating in neighborhood watch programs. It was our way of taking control and reclaiming our sense of safety. Over time, our trauma transformed into resilience. We refused to be defined by that one night of terror. Instead, we channeled our energy into helping others who had faced similar ordeals, offering support and guidance to victims of crime. In the process, we discovered a newfound strength within ourselves. We became advocates for change, lobbying for increased police presence and improved safety measures in our community. Our voices joined a chorus of concerned citizens who refused to let fear dictate their lives. While the scars of that night would forever remain, we found solace in the fact that we had not allowed ourselves to become victims. We had emerged from the darkness with a renewed sense of purpose, a determination to make a positive impact on the world around us. As the years passed, the memory of that terrifying encounter faded into the recesses of our minds. But the lessons we learned and the resilience we gained stayed with us, serving as a constant reminder to cherish life, trust our instincts, and stand strong in the face of adversity. In the end, our harrowing experience taught us that even in the darkest of moments, there is always a glimmer of hope. It reminded us of the strength that resides within us, waiting to be awakened when we face our greatest fears. And with that knowledge, we vowed to live each day to the fullest, never taking our safety for granted, and always being prepared for the unexpected. Story 2. I have spent a significant amount of time indulging in the art of camping throughout my life, particularly solo camping deep in the untamed wilderness. Any serious camper understands the potential dangers that accompany this hobby. However, there was one incident during a camping trip that caught me completely off guard. It was a serene evening, and my tent was nestled beside a tranquil flowing river. The campfire had nearly extinguished itself, and I had already settled into my sleeping bag, attempting to drift off into a peaceful slumber. But then I heard something peculiar, a faint circling around my tent. Initially, the sound manifested as the cracking of hefty branches in the distance. Gradually, it evolved into closer footsteps, softly padding the forest floor that encircled my temporary abode. I ruled out the possibility of a bear or other large creature, as the steps lacked the weightiness one would expect. Furthermore, the presence of my dwindling fire would typically deter such animals. Nevertheless, I chose to remain inside the tent, avoiding any unnecessary noise. Despite my efforts to stay silent, the footsteps continued their eerie procession around my tent. Finally, I mustered the courage to call out a hesitant hello. To my dismay, the steps remained unyielding. Frustration and apprehension welled up inside me, compelling me to sit up and take a quick glimpse outside. I unzipped the tent and cautiously crawled out, my ears still ringing with the echoes of those persistent footsteps. Yet, it seemed as though the source of the sound had become more cautious, their movements shrouded in stealth, peering into the darkness of the forest. The direction from which the steps emanated, I caught a fleeting glimpse of light, a luminous glow akin to a phone screen. The light vanished as abruptly as it had appeared, leaving me with the unnerving realization that a person was lurking in the vicinity, circling my campsite. Having already called out to this mysterious individual, only to receive silence in response. A wave of unease washed over me. As an experienced camper, I was well versed in the perils of the wild, but being stalked by another human was uncharted territory. Discomfort settled deep within me, rendering the once tranquil environment unbearably foreboding. Thankfully, I possessed a license to carry a sidearm, a precautionary measure I always adhered to during my outdoor excursions. Sensing the urgency of the situation, I retrieved my weapon from my bag. Time seemed to stretch, and panic seeped into my every action. With a trembling hand, I hastily packed my belongings, my sleeping bag and tent. Every few seconds, I spun around, paranoia compelling me to ensure that no one was stealthily closing in on me. Perhaps my fear would have been somewhat assuaged if the footsteps around my campsite had ceased. However, they persisted, amplifying my growing dread. Finally, when everything was tightly packed, I made no attempt to conceal the fact that I was sprinting back to my car, which mercifully wasn't parked too far away. I tossed my belongings into the backseat and hastily climbed in, immediately locking the doors. My trembling hand fumbled for the ignition, and as the engine roared to life, the car began to wobble and shake violently. The cacophony of a harsh scraping noise reverberated through the air. I braked abruptly, my heart sinking as I received a low tire pressure alert for all 4 tires. In that moment, it became glaringly evident that someone had maliciously slashed each of my tires. The realization hit me like a sledgehammer. I was stranded in the pitch-black forest with my car rendered immobile. The only source of light emanated from the headlights, casting feeble illumination into the surrounding darkness. I dared not gaze outside in any direction, for the chilling thought of a hidden observer watching from any conceivable angle sent shivers down my spine. Paralyzed by fear, I sat there, my whole body quaking, contemplating my next move. With trembling hands, I reached for my phone, simultaneously dialing the emergency number to summon the police. As the call connected, I stole a cautious glance into the rearview mirror. The sight that greeted me intensified the terror coursing through my veins. An ominous figure stood ominously near the trunk of my car, obscured by the shadows. My heart plummeted into the depths of my stomach, threatening to suffocate me with its pounding intensity. How did I manage to keep myself from screaming in that spine-chilling moment? Summoning all the courage I could muster, I took a deep breath and grasped the handgun that lay in the passenger seat. With determined resolve, I flung open the car door, stepping out into the night with an air of aggression. Every nerve in my body crackled with adrenaline as I trained the weapon on the person who had brazenly intruded upon my sanctuary. With a voice amplified by my sheer willpower, I bellowed at him, commanding him to stay away from my car. There was no trace of bluffing in my tone. I was prepared to defend myself if necessary. Sensing the unwavering determination in my voice, the figure retreated into the depths of the dense woods until he vanished from my line of sight. Returning to the safety of my car, I relayed the distressing events to the police, urgently directing them to the dirt parking area within the park where I had set up camp. Their reassuring words about dispatching a state trooper infused a glimmer of hope into my shaken psyche. While waiting for assistance, my eyes darted vigilantly, scanning the surroundings for any sign of danger. Never had the sight of flashing police lights been more welcome than when the trooper's vehicle pulled into the small dirt lot, casting a lifeline of security in the darkness. Finally feeling a modicum of safety, I cautiously emerged from my car, still warily surveying my surroundings. A tow truck arrived 20 agonizing minutes later, tasked with rescuing my vandalized vehicle. With my car in tow, we journeyed to a nearby repair shop, where the damaged tires were promptly replaced. Despite the ordeal, my unwavering spirit refused to be quelled. I spent the night in my car, its confined space offering a temporary respite from the terrors that had haunted me. As dawn broke, painting the sky with hues of golden promise, my resolve to continue camping remained unscathed. This chilling encounter, while traumatizing, failed to extinguish my love for the wilderness. The incident had sharpened my vigilance and reaffirmed the importance of preparedness in the face of unforeseen dangers. From that moment on, every camping trip became an opportunity for growth, an exercise in resilience, and a testament to the indomitable human spirit. I sought solace in nature, finding solace amidst the towering trees, the whispering breeze, and the songs of the birds. A vast expanse of untamed beauty embraced me, offering a sense of serenity and rejuvenation that could not be found elsewhere. I ventured into the wilderness with a newfound appreciation for the delicate balance between tranquility and peril, always mindful of the shadows that may conceal both wonders and threats. Over the years, I continued to explore remote corners of the world, undeterred by the lingering memories of that fateful night. Each camping trip served as a testament to my resilience, a reminder that life's most profound experiences often lie just beyond our comfort zones. The vastness of the wilderness became my canvas, and every step I took was a brushstroke, painting a vivid tapestry of adventure and self-discovery. With each passing journey, I honed my survival skills, delving deeper into the art of camping. I mastered the art of setting up camp with meticulous precision, ensuring that every detail was in its rightful place. A crackling campfire became my companion, casting dancing shadows that danced with the spirits of the night. The symphony of nocturnal creatures served as a lullaby, soothing me into a peaceful slumber under the starlit canopy above. Yet, the memory of that nightmarish encounter lingered, an indelible mark etched upon my consciousness. It fueled a primal instinct within me, heightening my awareness of the unseen perils that lurked in the wild. I became a student of nature, studying animal behavior, tracking signs of potential danger, and embracing the inherent wisdom of the wilderness. As the seasons turned, the landscapes transformed, and my wanderlust led me to diverse terrains. I traversed dense forests teeming with ancient secrets, crossed vast expanses of arid desert, and navigated treacherous mountain peaks that pierced the heavens. Each destination presented its own unique challenges, pushing me to adapt, overcome, and thrive amidst adversity. Through it all, I forged a deep connection with nature, an unbreakable bond that transcended fear and propelled me forward. The eerie silence of the night no longer instilled dread but rather a sense of awe and reverence. I marveled at the symphony of nature, listening to the whispering winds, the gentle rustling of leaves, and the ethereal melodies of babbling brooks. In the solitude of the wilderness, I discovered a profound sense of self-reliance. The challenges I faced became catalysts for personal growth, molding me into a resilient and fearless adventurer. I learned to trust my instincts, to navigate uncharted territories both within and outside myself. The wilderness became my sanctuary, a sacred space where I could shed the constraints of the mundane world and embrace the untamed spirit within. Years turned into decades, and my stories echoed through the annals of camping lore. Fellow enthusiasts sought my advice, drawn to the wisdom and experience I had acquired over countless nights spent beneath the starry expanse. I shared cautionary tales, imparted knowledge, and emphasized the importance of preparedness, all while inspiring others to venture into the great unknown. As twilight painted the sky with hues of crimson and gold, I sat by the campfire, its warm glow illuminating the faces of newfound companions. We exchanged stories, laughter, and a shared appreciation for the enigmatic beauty of the wilderness. It was in these moments that I realized my journey extended beyond personal conquest. It encompassed a legacy of inspiration, urging others to embrace the transformative power of nature. The horror that had once threatened to consume me had been transmuted into a wellspring of courage and resilience. It had taught me that even in the darkest of nights, there is always a flicker of light, a glimmer of hope. And so, with the fire crackling beside me and the stars twinkling above, I vowed to continue venturing into the untamed realms of the world, forever chasing the ethereal magic that lay hidden in the heart of nature. Story 3. In the realm of my memories, the old Buick held stories of its own. Its aging gas gauge possessed a mischievous spirit, often deceiving me with its erratic behavior. It played a game of uncertainty, sometimes hovering around the even when the tank was full, and occasionally teasing me with a needle stuck at the brink of emptiness. The gauge seemed to possess a whimsical will of its own, choosing when to work and when to remain dormant. One fateful night, after returning from a blissful vacation and neglecting my faithful companion for a week, I found myself stranded on a desolate road in a tranquil town. The car's engine sputtered and wheezed as the last remnants of fuel were exhausted. Reluctant to disturb my girlfriend who resided far away, I surveyed my surroundings for a glimmer of hope. All that greeted me were trees standing sentry on either side of the road and a modest house perched atop a nearby hill. With limited options at hand, I mustered the courage to seek assistance from the lone house. The time, 9:30 p.m., didn't deem it too late for an act of desperation. I approached the door and pressed the doorbell, patiently waiting for a response. Illuminated windows hinted at life within the house, fueling my optimism. Yet, after a minute of anticipation, I rang the bell once more, silently vowing it would be my last attempt. Accepting defeat, I turned away from the door and began to descend the walkway. But then, an eerie sound emanated from the side of the house, a mournful moan and labored breathing that echoed through the stillness of the night. It originated from behind a line of bushes, shrouded in an air of discomfort. Prudence advised against prying into that unknown domain, urging me to retreat. Respecting that intuition, I continued my journey back to the car. However, an inexplicable pull drew my gaze back to the house. To my astonishment, a previously darkened upstairs room now boasted a glowing light. Standing at the window was a figure, a silhouette of head and shoulders. I anticipated movement, a response to my presence, but the figure remained motionless, an enigma in the night. A disconcerting feeling gripped me, intensifying my desire to escape this eerie tableau. Leaning against my car door, I reached for my phone and dialed AAA, my trusted roadside assistance. Their promise to deliver fuel within 30 minutes provided a glimmer of relief. With the sweltering heat urging me to seek solace outside the car, I restlessly paced, intermittently glancing at my phone, scrolling through social media, and engaging in trivial conversations. Suddenly, a deep voice pierced the stillness. "Excuse me," startled. I lifted my head to behold a man standing by the curb near the house's driveway. His hat concealed his face, casting a veil of mystery, inquiring about any problems. His words were simple and devoid of curiosity. Uttering only a meek confession of running out of gas, I received a nonchalant response, just a no escaping his lips. Without further ado, He turned and ascended the hill, vanishing behind the line of bushes that had harbored the haunting sounds. A chill ran down my spine, leaving me with an unsettling impression of that peculiar encounter. Compelled to share my disconcerting experience, I texted my girlfriend, recounting the events that unfolded. Her response urged me to investigate the source of the mysterious noises from behind the bushes. Curiosity intertwined with caution, creating a tempestuous desire within me. Surrendering to that inner impetus, I succumbed to the pull of curiosity and embarked on a surreptitious journey through the dense veil of trees that adorned the guy's property. Each step carried a mix of trepidation and fascination as I approached the side of the house where the distressing sounds had originated. Moving with utmost caution, I tiptoed closer to the wall, my senses heightened and my heart pounding in anticipation. Standing against the cold exterior, I strained my ears to capture every nuance of the enigmatic cries. There it was again, the haunting moans and labored breaths. The sounds seemed to seep through the window, beckoning for help. Summoning my courage, I gently tapped on the window, my voice barely above a whisper. "Is everything okay?" I ventured, hoping to offer solace to the anguished soul within. To my surprise, a flicker of movement occurred behind the blinds. With bated breath, I awaited a response. The blinds twitched open, revealing a glimpse of what lay behind. In that fleeting moment, my eyes met a face, an all too familiar face. It was the same visage of the mysterious man who had emerged from the house earlier, his features etched with an inscrutable expression. Before I could decipher the meaning behind his presence, the blinds swiftly dropped, severing our visual connection. Silence reclaimed the scene, leaving me grappling with unanswered questions. The impact of that unsettling encounter reverberated through my core, overshadowing any curiosity that had propelled me to this point. Instinctively, I retraced my steps, descending the hill with an unshakable sense of unease. Reaching the sanctuary of my car, I swiftly locked the doors, seeking solace within its confined space. Time seemed to crawl as I waited for the arrival of the AAA truck. Anxiety consumed me, fueling a restless energy that compelled me to continually scan my surroundings. And then, piercing through the night, a deep voice shattered the silence once more. Goosebumps prickled my skin as the man from the house emerged from the shadows. His hat obscured his face, his presence an enigma in the darkness. Though apprehension gripped my heart, I maintained a facade of composure. The man approached me with measured steps. His head tilted low, his intentions veiled. With trepidation, he asked, "Is there a problem?" A surge of unease coursed through my veins as I recalled our earlier encounter, but I managed to utter a brief reply. I ran out of gas. The man's response was hauntingly simple, "Oh," without any further interaction. He turned away and ascended the hill, his silhouette blending into the night. A shiver ran down my spine, leaving me to ponder the enigmatic nature of these encounters. Finally, the sound of the approaching AAA truck cut through the tension-laden air, offering a semblance of relief. As the fuel flowed into my tank, I couldn't bring myself to reveal the disturbing events I had witnessed. Instead, I chose to bury them deep within, suppressing the memory in an attempt to regain a sense of normalcy. Driving away from that forsaken road, I yearned for the comfort of my own home, eager to find solace in familiar surroundings. Sleep proved elusive that night, as my mind swirled with fragmented images and unanswered questions. The house on the hill lingered in the recesses of my thoughts, a haunting reminder of an encounter that defied comprehension. In the days that followed, I wrestled with the decision of whether to share my harrowing experience. Fear of judgment and disbelief weighed heavily on my conscience. Yet, deep down, I knew that silence would only perpetuate the mysteries that plagued my mind. I confided in a close friend, recounting a series of events with a mix of apprehension and vulnerability. Together, we decided to uncover the truth behind that enigmatic house, armed with curiosity and an unwavering determination. We set out on a quest to investigate the house on the hill. The daylight offered a false sense of security as we approached the property once more. The stillness of the air seemed to hold its breath, as if aware of the secrets that lurked within those walls. Cautiously, we ventured towards the front door, our hearts pounding in sync with each step. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit interior. The air carried a stale scent, hinting at years of neglect. We treaded softly, our footsteps muffled by the thick layer of dust covering the floor. Exploring room after room, we discovered remnants of a forgotten life, a life that had succumbed to the passage of time. The walls whispered tales of joy and sorrow, their peeling wallpaper bearing witness to the slow decay. As we ascended the staircase, a lingering sense of foreboding gripped our souls, warning us of the darkness that awaited us above. On the second floor, we stumbled upon a door slightly ajar. A flickering light emanated from within, casting eerie shadows across the hallway. Drawing closer, we entered a room filled with tattered furniture and forgotten memories. In the center stood a decrepit bed, its sheets stained and threadbare. A sudden realization struck us. The sounds we had heard were not the product of a malevolent spirit, but the desperate cries of someone in need. With trepidation, we approached the bed, discovering a frail figure lying motionless. Fear mingled with compassion as we reached out to touch the person's hand. As our fingers made contact, a weak voice pleaded for help. Eyes filled with tears met ours, reflecting years of isolation and suffering. The person, once vibrant and full of life, had become a prisoner in this decaying house. We learned that the mysterious man, the one I had encountered, was their caretaker, bearing the weight of secrets and sorrows. Overwhelmed by a rush of empathy, we vowed to assist the person in escaping their confines. With careful coordination, we arranged for their relocation to a place of safety and support. In doing so, we unraveled the tangled web of their past, unearthing a history marred by tragedy and heartache. As the truth unfurled, the house on the hill transformed from a haunted mystery into a testament of resilience and redemption. Through the darkness, a glimmer of hope emerged, illuminating the path towards healing and forgiveness. The community rallied around the person, offering support and extending a compassionate hand. In the end, the old Buick served as a catalyst for an unforeseen journey, one that transcended the realm of mechanical troubles and ventured into the realm of the human spirit. It reminded me that within the folds of our own struggles, there are stories waiting to be heard and lives waiting to be transformed. As I reflect upon that haunting experience, I realize that the true horror lies not in the shadows that loom, but in the silence that ensues when we choose to ignore the cries for help. May we always strive to be the ones who listen, who act, and who bring light to the darkest corners of existence. And may the house on the hill stand as a testament to the power of compassion and the triumph of the human spirit over the forces that seek to confine us.